Then we will do so. We'll call this meeting to order. Good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Clifton, serving as your chair. This is the Mountain Line TAC meeting of August 1st. Wow, summer's just cruising by. August 1st, it's shortly after 10 o'clock. And can we have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman and members of the TAC. Coconino County, Kim Musselman.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Coconino County Citizen Representative Carol Covington.
Also present.
Thank you. City of Flagstaff, Greg Clifton.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. City of Flagstaff Citizen Representative Michelle James.
I'm here.
Thank you. Metro Plan, Dave Wessel. He is expected about 15 minutes late, he thought. NAU, Rafi Rivera.
Present.
Thank you. Our NAU student, Carly Vandermeesh.
Present.
Thank you. CCC, Kurt Stull.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. And our Economic Development Representative, Gail Jackson, is excused. We do have Cameron Stanley, our attorney, on the line, and staff are in the Vera room or on Zoom. And I'll turn it back to you, Chair Clifton. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. It could be a short meeting today, but we'll see how it goes. Our third item is the safety minute, and I think we have Sam Short presenting on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Transit Advisory Committee. Today's safety minute is on back to school safety. Back to school means more kids are back on the streets. Parents and kids both need to remember how to stay safe during this busy time of year. Here are a few tips for back to school road safety. Parents should slow down and be alert, especially in residential areas and near schools. Be especially watchful of kids in rural areas without sidewalks. Children 10 and under should not cross streets unsupervised. Review the safety guidelines with them. Have them look left, right, and left again before crossing, and then keep looking as they cross. Walk, do not run to cross the street. Remind kids to cross the street at corners using traffic signals and crosswalks wherever possible. Children should never run into the street or between parked cars. For those children riding bicycles, teach your child the rules of the road and practice riding the bike route to school with your child. Ride on the right side of the road with traffic and in a single file. Come to a complete stop before crossing the street and walk your bike across the street. Make sure your child always wears a properly fitted helmet and bright colored clothing. Please help us keep kids safe this school year by using these back to school safety tips. Thank you and welcome to the August Transit Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you, Sam. I always enjoy these safety minutes. They're relevant and they are timely. That was good stuff. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Heather, we are on to number 4, milestone anniversaries.
Great, awesome. Good morning, everyone. So this morning we are here celebrating 3 milestone anniversaries. The 3 people we're recognizing are all completing their first year here at Mountain Line, and they are important parts of our team. So starting from the left and moving to the right, the first person we're going to recognize is Jackie Ramirez. Jackie is one of our staff members that operates both paratransit and fixed route services. And she's always here responsive to our needs, and she's willing to share a big smile. She fills the room with warmth and happiness, and it's really infectious to be around her and just be so positive and happy with her. We're really glad that we have Jackie on our team, and our passengers really appreciate her commitment to excellent service. Ryan Curley, photoed in the middle, is one of our what we call silent heroes. He works for us part-time. He has a full-time job somewhere else, driving a much larger vehicle with a different kind of package, not people. But he comes to work regularly. He's one of our fill-ins. So when we're short on staff, he's always willing to jump in and help us. Ryan is really interested in helping the Flagstaff community, and he goes above and beyond the extra mile every day to serve our customers, and we're grateful to have him and his commitment. Peter Corbel on the right side of the screen. Peter is an amazing find that we have added to our team here at Mountain Line. His driving and safety practices are implemented daily at a high level. He's always willing to lend a hand to help other operators with concerns or just giving great tips on customer service. And I will say, Peter does bring a wealth of supervisory and management experience to his position, and he's been willing to cross-train and learn and help us with supervisory skills and duties when needed. So I'm very excited to celebrate these 3 one-year anniversaries, and I appreciate you giving me a few moments to share their successes.
Of course. Thank you so much, Heather. Congratulations to Jackie, Brian, and Peter. That's wonderful. And thanks for the nice introductions to these wonderful employees. Okay, item number 5. Do we have anybody in the call to the public?
Chairman, we do not have any members of the public in the room joining us, nor did we receive any comments via email. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to item number 6, which is the approval of the TAC minutes. And that was from June 6th. Seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? June 6th. So we have the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review? And if so, can we get approval of those?
This is Carol. I move to approve.
Thank you, Carol.
This is
Yes.
Kim, all second.
Thank you, Kim. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Excellent. We have our minutes approved. Thank you very much. Now review of the draft board business agenda. First, the discussion action items. And again, we're not really taking action on these, nor are we having any elaborative discussion. It's kind of just an overview. And if there are any questions or comments, we certainly can entertain those. This first item is the amended Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy. That is a mouthful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Transit Advisory Committee. So as it relates to the amended Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy, staff is recommending that the Board of Directors approve the resolution 2025-170 to adopt the amended Mountain Line Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy and authorize the CEO and General Manager to approve future updates that do not alter the intent of the policy. The reference documents are updated to incorporate changes that reflect a more customer-focused approach to providing transit services to the community while offering protective measures for the employees of Mountain Line. Next slide, please, Rhonda. So as mentioned, Mountain Line recently changed their approach to providing customer service and how it relates to the Rider Code of Conduct and the Transportation Service Suspension Policy. The Code of Conduct, which outlines expected behaviors while using Mountain Line services, was changed to reflect a more customer-focused rules and altered several of the rules that were previously in place. So one of the other reasons why we wanted to amend the policy is to align the policy with other information that had already been publicly published, such as the rules for riders and on our website, as well as in our rider's guide. We also wanted to make sure that the policy was clear to staff as well as customers, and that we could add additional resources for our staff. Some of those additional resources would be for more supervisor assist when it comes to suspensions, and more documentation for those suspensions. Next slide, please. One of the more customer-friendly changes that we made to our rules was prior to the amendment, Essentially, you could not bring an animal on board the bus unless it was a service animal or in a cage. We've now updated and amended the policy to state that pets are welcome, but they may not occupy a seat and must be under control at all times. Any animals displaying aggressive behaviors, threatening other passengers, or acting in a disruptive manner will be refused. So that was one of the rule changes. Additionally, we've also added suspension length times, which prior to the change, there was only options of 1 day suspension, 30-day suspension, 60-day suspension, or 90-day suspension. So myself and the operations director thought it would be better to add shorter lengths of suspension dates so we could have a better suspension that applied to whatever the policy violation was. So we added 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, etc. Next slide, please. We also did change some of the suspension procedures where drivers cannot issue a 1 day suspension anymore prior to the authorization of a supervisor, and that supervisor does have to approve that and ensure that proper documentation of that suspension is taken. We've also changed some of the suspension appeal processes, which we added the HR manager to the suspension appeal, as the HR manager is the ADA, EEO, and civil rights officer, just to ensure that during the suspension process and the appeal process that nobody's rights were being violated. Next slide, please. So again, as it relates to the amended Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy, staff recommends the Board of Directors approve the resolution 2025-170 to adopt the amended Mountain Line Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy, and also authorize the CEO and General Manager to approve future updates that do not alter the intent of the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That was a nice summary and some good examples to go with it. I do think, as an opinion here, that the change of policy for pets is going to be very well received. But thanks for walking us through that. Any input, comments, questions for Sam?
This is Carol. I do have a couple of comments, but I wanted to couch my comments with the caveat that I'm not really such a nitpicker. Maybe that's not so, but as I read through the packet, I have an eye towards making it a little bit better if possible, so that it's more understandable, and so that the staff is covered and doesn't have foibles if that's the case. So thank you for your forbearance. On page 16, it's Rider Code of Conduct and Transportation Service Suspension Policy. Rider policies regarding the boarding the bus. I would suggest that the last bullet, noxious or foul materials / substances and or possession of flammable, explosive, or hazardous materials, continue, so that says are prohibited. I think that's the intent, or some similar wording.
Sure.
The next comment I had is the item just below that. The last bullet again says corrosive or soiling substances, including biohazards. There's no action there, so I just are also prohibited, maybe, if that's the case. I think that would clarify it.
Okay.
And the last one is at the bottom of the page: conduct that may lead to ejection and suspension if corrective actions, is not taken the rider upon instruction from the operator. I think it means by the rider, not taken by the rider upon instruction from the operator.
Correct.
So I know they're not big things, they're just little things, but I thought I'd share them. Thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Indeed.
Thank you, Carol. They may not be big things, but they're important things, and
For sure.
they help clarify the policy. So thank you for those comments, and Sam, thanks for getting those incorporated. Any other questions, comments, input? Great. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank
And
you,
Carol?
Ben.
Yep, thank you. Moving on to item A2, this is regarding advertising, review advertising program and revenue update. I think this is Jackie's.
It is. Good morning. Thank you, Chair and members of the TAC. This is sort of a two-part agenda item. I'll be handling the first one, and then Heather will follow up with some additional, I believe you're right after me, with additional information on this topic. So I'm just doing a brief overview of our advertising program, our advertising sales program. This current TAC and board hasn't heard from us in a while on this, so we just want to review kind of how we run this program and how we bring in funds. So if you've seen our buses around town, you most likely know that we sell advertising on the exterior of the buses. We also sell advertising on the interior of the buses. So clearly reaching two different audiences there. The exterior reaches people about town, while the interior reaches our riders. Ronnie, you can go to the next slide. All my slides are just pictures, so I can. We currently sell advertising on the street side, the curb side, and the tail of all of our revenue vehicle, all of our fixed route vehicles. And this is actually quite popular in town, as probably most of you know. Flagstaff does have a off-premise advertising or off-premise signage ban. I mean, more commonly known as kind of a billboard ban. So there are not many opportunities for outdoor advertising in Flagstaff, and our buses are one of the few. So we are quite successful with that. So we do actually operate this program in-house. Meaning that we don't outsource the sales or placement of these ads to any outside agency. A lot of bigger transit agencies, they will outsource their entire advertising sales program to an outside agency who handles everything, and then obviously takes a cut of the profits. With our size of fleet, running at about, I think, 29 or 30 buses currently, it's not super attractive to an outside agency to come bid on that and manage that level of contract. So we've sort of just managed everything in-house. So between myself, our billing team, obviously, and then our fleet team handles the placement and removal of all of those ads. Ron, you can go to the next slide. And I'm just showing you a good example, a nice example here of the different kinds of ads that we have. We attract a lot of local advertisers, as you saw in the last one. That was our local Who Hot franchise that advertises. And then we also attract some regional and national advertisers. Here's an example of one, Midwestern University. So we have a pretty good mix on the buses. We do offer for the interior advertising a 50% discount for nonprofit and other government partners like city, county, NAU. On that interior advertising. You can go to the next slide, Rhonda. So several years ago, the board, we brought the concept of our advertising program to the board, and actually previously the only kind, when I first started here 12 years ago, the only kind of advertising we allowed on the buses was what you're seeing right now, that tail advertising on the back of the buses. And then several years ago, I'm going to say it was probably 8 to 9 years ago, the board decided they wanted to expand that. So we started offering it on the side. So you saw the street side, the very large ads. Rhonda can go to the next slide. On the street side, and then next slide, please. And then we also added the curbside ads. So as you're boarding, you can see those. So those were added several years ago. The previous board that considered this did not have any interest in expanding beyond that. So if you've ever been in another larger community, there's many other advertising opportunities on buses. You can wrap an entire bus things along those lines. Generally the feeling here has been that we don't want to cover up our branding completely with an ad, with, we want our branding to shine through and make, some money off of this, but still people know that it's Mountain Line, and it's not a rolling billboard for one thing. Another thing that we are doing, bus is a good example. We have designed a new wrap for our buses, so the actual Mountain Line branding on it. As you can see, a good portion of our windows are covered by the design of that. And also part of the ad covers it up as well. So our new wrap, which will be going on some of our older buses as they are, their wrap is aging out, will be a lot simpler, sort of like our electric bus if you've seen that around town, and will not cover up those windows as much, which will be very exciting. And our riders will definitely appreciate that. Our advertising program is also, I'm going to say, governed by we do have an advertising policy, and the board has approved that. So it prohibits certain types of advertising, alcohol, tobacco. Most recently, the board voted to add vaping and e-cigarettes to the prohibited list. And importantly, this time of year, political advertising is not permitted. So you will not see any ads on our buses for any candidates. Any ballot initiatives, our own included. So we do not accept any sort of political advertising on the buses. And this is all with consultation with our legal team. So in the staff report, it does outline what our revenue is. So our advertising program, we typically run about, I'm going to say 90 to 95% full on the ads. We do have some turnover, and we'll have some blank ones for a little while, but like I mentioned, it is fairly popular. And in recent years, we've seen a pretty significant increase in the revenue that we are getting from these ads. So in fiscal year 2024, we were just shy of $180,000. And there is obviously some staff time in that, in the administering the program. So it's a not insignificant amount of money that we are taking in every year on the advertising program. I'm going to stop there because when Heather delivers her report, it will delve more into the money and what we are proposing to do with that money. But I'm happy to answer any questions about the advertising program itself or the policy or anything like that.
Thank you, Jackie. That was a nice summary. Again, an opinion here. I think our buses are very attractive, and I think the advertising that the way it's done, as you laid out, is very tasteful. Okay, any comments, input on the presentation that Jackie just gave? Great. Thank you so much, and we'll pick up, as you mentioned, with more discussion with Heather. And on that, I think we are on to Heather as we talk about reallocation of advertising revenues.
Thank you, Chair Clifton and members of the Transit Advisory Committee. I appreciate Jackie giving me a very nice setup because I am asking the board to consider a reallocation of some of those advertising revenues that we have received over the years. And in order for everyone to understand where the money comes from, Jackie really did a great job of explaining our advertising program. So we will be asking the board to reallocate advertising revenues that are currently deposited into Mountain Line's general fund per our financial management policy. And the reason we're asking for that reallocation of that funding of $500,000 is to offset the impact of the off-budget wage increase that the board did approve at the end of June. I'm just going to pause before I go on to my slides and make sure that you have had an opportunity to see the progress report off budget wage change, as that action and recommendation went directly to the board and did not come to this TAC, but is very closely tied to this recommendation as well. So as we go through this, if you have questions on what we're asking in the reallocation or about that off budget wage change, they are so closely tied, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Next slide. I tried to keep this pretty simple and straightforward. As mentioned, Jackie went over the advertising revenues. We have been putting the advertising revenues in the general fund since we became the Transit Authority in 2006. Prior to that, the advertising revenues were used every year to offset our operating cost. And the board adopted a financial management policy as NEPTA that changed that direction. And the idea was it gave us some financial backing to help our partners when they need it, or be available for, I've heard people call it rainy day, I've heard others call this slush fund, but it really was meant to be, if we had a grant opportunity that we didn't have local match for, let's not pass it up, let's have some funding set aside. The intent of advertising revenue as set by the Federal Transit Administration is you're using federally funded vehicles. The revenue that you receive from them has to go back into the provision of the transit program. And that rule really applies in situations where you're operated by a city and not a transit authority. And it's to be clear that the funding from advertising can't be used for police, fire, chief, roads, et cetera. So with that said, as of June 30th, we have about $919,000 sitting in our general fund that we have collected over the years. I will say in our earliest days of advertising revenue, we were receiving around $25,000, $30,000. And you can see in those last 3 fiscal years how that has changed and grown. Part of that is just the amount of real estate we're now using on the vehicle for advertising. We used to only do tail ads or interior ads. And you can see from Jackie's presentation, we're now using what we call king and queens, which is the side space on those vehicles. The recommendation to the board is to reduce that by $500,000. And I want to be really clear, I pointed this out in the staff report. This isn't an on paper transaction. This money still is in our bank account. It's just how we use the money. So we would be using it throughout fiscal year 2025 to offset some operating costs, mostly the fiscal year 2025 off budget wage change that had an impact of over $400,000 on the local transit tax if we don't find other revenues to offset it. But we're also very focused on staff development and our training tools and resources. And this is all part of that effort to, one, hire more qualified and then retain those qualified staff. So at the end of the day, if the board approves this, it would take our fund balance down to about $420,000 with the opportunity to replenish about 200,000 of that, just less than 200,000 of that when fiscal year 2025 revenues. So that's really everything that I have. I did try and detail this further in the staff report, but again, be happy to answer any questions about this recommendation or the wage change if any member of the TAC did want to ask questions about that progress report. And in recognition of, we did not bring that to the TAC in June. Rhonda, you can go to the next slide.
Great. And this is just the summary, right, Heather?
This is the recommendation that the board will
Okay.
consider. And so
Yeah.
it's, I just put it up as a signal that we can answer any questions that you might have.
Excellent. That was a nice presentation. Thanks for the summary there. So we have the topic, of course, reallocation of 500,000, a one-time offset, and then as Heather walked us through, the other subtopic, which is the off-budget wage change. Any comments, questions, or input for Heather on this? Hearing none, Heather, I think we're good to go. Thank you for that nice summary.
I think actually maybe Member Covington had remarks or suggestions.
Oh, and I did not see. I apologize.
No, that was quite all right. I didn't articulate anything. If this is the appropriate time, I was really confused when I read the wage off budget wage expenses because it seemed to, and I'm not sure what it is exactly you're presenting to the board, but it was dated August 21st, but yet it went on to say that it was presented to the board on June 26th. And there was a paragraph at the end that was kind of a caveat saying all this stuff has already happened, which was like, wait, I was just trying to unravel all this information and figure out. I went back to old agendas and all that stuff, and I was really confused. And so that paragraph at the end was it just spun me in a different direction. And I want, I don't know what it is you're presenting to the board, but it might be nice to have a caveat at the front that says, all this has already taken place or something. I don't know.
All right. I appreciate that. And actually, I owe the TAC a deep apology because the progress report is only for the Transit Advisory Committee. It is not going to the board. And I followed our traditional method of dating things based on when the board meeting is without giving it clear intentional thought. So I apologize for that. The reason that progress report was put into the Transit Advisory Committee packet is because this did go to the board as a staff report with the recommendation that they did act upon on June 26th. I was trying to recapture all of that in a summary progress report for the Transit Advisory Committee only. So that progress report will not go back to the board of directors. They did in fact receive a presentation with the recommendation that they then approved and authorized us to make. The progress report was my attempt at trying to advise the TAC that this took place outside of the Transit Advisory Committee packets. And I want to respect what we ask you all to do. I apologize for the additional confusion created with not being careful about how I dated things or titled them.
Thank you, Heather, for that clarity. And Carol, I assume that, and thank you, Carol, for bringing that point of confusion forward. I assume that Heather's explanation gives you the clarity that you needed or address the confusion that you pointed out.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
No, thank you. And again, thank you, Heather, for the summary. Any other comments, questions, observations? Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going from advertising to financial policy update. This is Josh.
And actually, I apologize. I should have let you know prior to the meeting, Chair Clifton, Josh is out of country actually on vacation. And since there is such a huge time difference, I did not want to disturb him or ask him to get up, I don't know, at 11 p.m. wherever he is to attend today's meeting. So I am going to cover this item. It is attached to the prior agenda item. So this recommendation to the board of directors is to take a look at our financial management policy as it pertains specifically to the general fund balance and the other revenues that are deposited to it. So if we can go to the next slide. Josh has given you a full staff report, but this is really what we're recommending that we do is add these two statements, add to the section E Mountain Line General Fund statements that would set a maximum balance. So when the general fund reaches the proposed balance of $750,000, any additional revenues that would traditionally be put into the general fund will be put instead right into the transit programs that we operate from year to year. So we would then maintain that fund balance of $750,000, but nothing in excess of that. And any excess funds would be then put right into our services. So this alters the intent of that policy. Really, when we set up the fund balance with the advertising revenues in here, I don't think any of us ever envisioned that it would grow to the amount that it has and that we wouldn't be seeing revenue off the advertising program specifically of $150,000, $170,000 a year. Again, when that policy was set, we were seeing maybe $40,000 a year in advertising revenues. So the proposal before the board is that they amend that financial management policy that will amend this section and allow for funds in excess of $750,000 to be deposited directly back into operating, so that we aren't coming here under these specific situations. Although we could come back to the board and say, we have this opportunity, here's how we recommend you use the funds. This would just cap what is deposited into and maintained in that fund balance. And that's basically everything that I have to present. And I hope the staff report really contained enough information, but I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you for covering for Josh. I'm sure he appreciates it wherever he is. And you walked us through that pretty thoroughly. Are there any questions, comments, or input for Heather on this?
Well,
hi, Carol. Yeah.
I'm back again.
Awesome.
Good.
As I warned you.
All good.
I wanted to make a suggestion that on page 44, it looks like the track changes is still on, and it's probably a good idea to go back and fix that. And let's see, page 46, what's that? Oh, I think that was also track changes and 47. So anyway, you'll figure it out. But then on page 51, what have I got here? Wait, is that part of the same? Oh no, that's another one. Sorry. I'll come back with
Okay.
page 51. Thank you.
I do want to acknowledge we intentionally put it in the packet with track changes on so that the board and the TAC could see exactly what we changed. But obviously, once the board adopts it, we would turn off those changes and accept them. But we find that to be a very clean way of saying, here's what we edited and changed. But I appreciate that you caught it and made sure we were aware of it.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. And then Carol, was there something on page 51? I didn't catch that.
Yes, but I think that's a different item.
Oh, okay, great, great. We'll put that on hold for just a second. Thank you so much. Any other questions, comments for Heather on the financial management policy? Great. Thank you, Heather. All right, moving on to item 5, mobility as a service plan update. And this goes to Estella.
Thank you, Chair Clifton, members of the TAC. My name is Estella Hollander, and I am the planning manager with Mountain Line. And I'm going to provide an update regarding a planning effort that we've completed over the past year called Mobility as a Service. Next slide, please. So the project goal of this plan was to create new and improved mobility options for paratransit and microtransit riders through new technology and contracted relationships that maximize transit options in a cost-efficient and effective manner. Essentially, looking at the needs of our paratransit and microtransit riders, seeing how we can enhance that mobility. Currently, our paratransit riders, you have to book a ride in advance. So there's a lack of same-day service that we provide. And so seeing how can we enhance that in the most cost-effective and efficient manner. So that could mean, contracting these services out or just partnering with certain entities like Uber and Lyft. So this plan was kind of an exploratory planning effort and really, looking into different options. There's been a lot of updates in this field over the past, 10 years or so with the emergence of Uber and Lyft. So just seeing, what are some other options of maybe how Mountain Line could operate our microtransit and paratransit operations. And so staff contracted with Texas A&M Transportation Institute, or TTI, to complete this planning effort. So next slide, please. So progress to date, this planning effort looked at information gathering and analysis of our current conditions. So really did a deep dive of looking at all the policies associated with these programs, making sure all compliance with the Federal Transit Administration, as well as data and how maybe these services can be more efficient. So that's been completed. Also identified potential operating models and sort of the pros and cons. So currently, both our paratransit and microtransit is operated in-house. So it's Mountain Line is doing all the operations. It's our drivers. We're not contracting this service out to like a third-party provider. So we did look at what are the pros and cons if Mountain Line would contract these programs out. Also evaluated and compared alternative models. So essentially looking at if we were to broker or to transfer certain trips to third-party providers. So services such as like Uber and Lyft. So what if we were to, instead of Mountain Line doing all the trips, what if we were to contract with Uber and Lyft and send those certain trips out to them? And then also this plan provided a model recommendation. So right now it's still pending is implementation right now. Just the planning effort, this kind of exploratory effort has been completed, but we have not implemented any changes to date. So next slide, please. So phase 1, the recommendation from this plan is to, 1, continue operating paratransit and microtransit in-house. That's what we're gonna keep doing. So kind of business as usual, but also incorporate ADA certified overflow providers, essentially a fancy word of, contracting with other services. These are some companies called Userve or Silverride. These are prominent companies throughout throughout the US where they're operating in other cities to basically take on some of the paratransit rides. So both these services are similar to Uber and Lyft, meaning that they're kind of independent operators. They're using their own vehicles, but they go through more extensive training compared to an Uber and Lyft driver. They're also drug and alcohol tested. So they just, again, go through more training. They also have like some passenger sensitivity training, since these drivers will be, again, taking on some of our paratransit clients in some of those trips. They are cheaper on a cost per trip basis compared to Mountain Line operating these trips. That's one benefit of why Mountain Line would contract with these other providers and maybe transfer some of our trips over to these providers. Another recommendation is to add paratransit clients to the existing microtransit trip booking app called Mountain Line Go. So currently, this app is for kind of a specific area in Flagstaff, and people can book rides, cancel rides, manage their trips through this app. So by adding the paratransit clients to this app, again, it can hopefully reduce some of our call volume. They can, see where their vehicle is and manage their trips that way. Next slide, please. So phase 2, or kind of a longer term recommendation, this chart, I'll walk through this chart because there's a lot of boxes and a lot of arrows. But essentially, if we move towards a same-day paratransit model. So again, as I mentioned in the beginning, our paratransit service is advanced reservation. So someone needs to book a ride by 5 p.m. the day before, which, has some limitations. If you need to, go to the grocery store or see a friend same day, it limits some of that mobility. So that's really one of the goals of this plan, is seeing how can we enhance that mobility, again, in the most cost-effective and efficient manner. So starting at the top, we have our customer. So this would be, again, a paratransit or a microtransit trip request. It would go to our current call center, or I should also mention the app. And then the ride would either go to a Mountain Line vehicle, how it currently is. So these are, again, ADA certified drivers. They're wheelchair accessible vehicles. That's what WAVE stands for. And it would be a shared ride. The middle column is the ADA overflow. So this is what I mentioned, kind of these companies called User or Silver Ride. These are ADA certified. They are most likely non-wheelchair accessible vehicles, but they would be at least shareable rides. So, and then the third option is an opt-in provider, where these are non-ADA certified operators. So kind of like an Uber and Lyft, could also be one of our local taxi companies as well. And these companies are already participating in our taxi program currently. This is called opt-in, so meaning a paratransit rider would choose or opt in to be part of this program. And so they're just provide more options. These also would most likely not be wheelchair accessible vehicles and not a shared ride, but Mountain Line would be able to step in to provide those wheelchair accessible vehicles. I'll actually pause there before my last slide, just seeing if there's any questions on kind of the service model. One thing I did want to note is Mountain Line has presented this to our Coordinated Mobility Council, which is basically a group of nonprofits, human service organizations, some city and county staff, which really focuses on older adults, people with disabilities, and their transportation needs. And they really liked this service model, the idea of just providing more options for paratransit clients, as well as kind of enhancing that mobility to same-day service.
Great. Thank you, Estella. Yeah, we have a good model in front of us. Any input or comments for Estella on this before she moves on?
Hi, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment. I think it's really awesome, Estella, and I know you've worked with lots of other folks around this, but this is good stuff to see, and I really commend you all for the work on it. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kim.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I echo those comments. Anybody else on this? Otherwise, we'll continue with the presentation. Okay, back to you, Estella.
Excellent, thank you. So just one last slide, if you can change, Rhonda, appreciate it. So next steps, we're currently working on just some kind of small policy fixes. For example, our current advanced reservation policy for paratransit is 14 days, so you can book 14 days in advance. Wanting to change that to 7, so kind of tightening it up a bit more. This is mostly due to our high cancellation rate. I think often maybe people might book a trip 14 days in advance, life changes, they forget to cancel. So we have a lot of no-shows and things like that. So the goal of kind of tightening that up is to hopefully reduce some of that. That phase one, so it's a lot of our current conditions, but then looking to contract with an ADA service provider. So developing a scope of work for that, and then actually do the contracting and get them on board. And then phase two, kind of this more longer term goal of an opt-in program, that kind of thing. That will be later on. A lot of this is dependent on a permanent operations director position, since especially that phase two is, I would say, more of a major change, really kind of changing how we're currently working, updating it to same day service, that kind of thing. So wanting that leadership in place before making these dramatic changes. But phase one is, I would say, a good stepping stone to get us to that phase two. And that's something we're wanting to implement more quickly. And so that's it. So now I'm available for other questions.
Great, thank you again. Any other questions or input for Estella on the entire presentation?
This is Carol again.
Hi, Carol.
I promise, page 51.
I knew 51 was coming.
The last bullet and the last sentence, I read that sentence over, well, several times. And at first I thought, well, it should say staff are anticipated to be able to balance their times, but it goes on. And I found myself wishing that it was two sentences instead of one, because I sort of got lost somewhere before I got to the end of the sentence. So are and yeah.
And Carol, sorry, I don't have any bullets in my staff report. I'm just a little confused on which paragraph you're referring to.
Okay, other factors to consider include 1, 2, 3. Oh, what page? What's the title of?
And this is the mobility as a service.
Oh no, you know what? Forget it. This is off budget wage change.
Okay, not a problem. I was just wanting to make sure I understood your comment.
I jumped the gun, but now you've got my comment for the next one.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
good.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Carol. And I think we did hear your comment. So maybe when we conclude here and get on to the progress reports, Heather, when you're circling back on the off budget stuff, you can address that comment on page 51, which is a good comment. Thank you, Carol. Yep. And back to Estella, anything else on the mobility as a service plan update? Great, thank you, Estella, and thanks for a wonderful presentation on that.
Thank you all.
Mm-hmm. And we are on to progress reports, and I know we go through these in rapid succession, but on the off-budget wage change,
yep.
Heather, I think this is back to you, and you heard Carol's comments on page 51, so I'll let you roll with this. Thanks.
I did, and I think, Carol, what I heard you say, what I noted is that last bullet under other factors to consider is too long of a sentence, and that I need to do a better job of breaking ideas up into sentences. So if I've got that feedback correctly, we will certainly apply it to staff reports in the future.
That's great. Can I offer one more comment?
Please. Of course, please. You make me write better.
I appreciate your patience with me. But I also noticed that in, let's see, where is it? At the top, at the top of page 51, you talk about an attachment that I didn't see. Where is that?
Yeah.
Wage.
$27 per the attached.
Yeah,
see
attached.
I see the remark. Yep. And that was included in the board packet. So I apologize we didn't include it with this progress report.
Okay, that's fine. I once again, I'm looking for the attachment. Thanks.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Heather. And Heather, we kind of go through these rapidly, right? This is just an FYI.
We do we usually jump right past all of them straight to current events, but I will just note for everyone in attendance that the progress reports in this packet do include some of our annual reports. So I encourage you to read them. Let us know if you have questions. And of course, we're happy to put anything that is necessary on a future agenda for additional discussion. And with that, I can jump right into current events unless you have questions that you want me to answer now or ask staff to answer on those progress reports.
Thank you, Heather. Any questions for Heather? I think we're good.
All right, so right into current events. Let me get my notes pulled up here. Next slide, please. So our team has been busy. Rhonda, I'm sorry, I animated these, so I'm going to have to ask you to click a couple of times. Our team has been busy at back to school events, which we're very excited to be invited to. We've attended back to school events at multiple schools, especially with FUSD. We attended 9 events over 2 weeks. 11 different staff members participated, a total of 132 hours spent talking to our students and staff and parents, and we distributed roughly 700 passes to K through 12 students, mostly middle and high school in these scenarios, but really very grateful to Jackie. We had very little notice on some of these events, and she did a fantastic job, as Jackie always does, of getting us organized and ready. And these pictures here are specifically at Sanawa. I attended one at Mount Elda Middle School, and we also did attend them at the high schools as well and bases. So lots of back to school activities going on in our community, and we're excited to see school go back in the coming days. We did have a training for our staff. We have a new opportunity. Our team has identified this new opportunity where we are connecting our drivers and our operations supervisors with people in similar positions across the nation through webinars. And this is all thanks to our peers at the Community Transportation Association of America. And these 2 photos here are 8 of our drivers who were the first to experience this new training opportunity, attending a session called Customer Driven Service. You're going to hear a lot in our presentations and conversations that we're really trying to focus our efforts on customer experience. So this training was a way to get these 8 staff members aligned under that. A lot of these drivers are seen as mentors in our driver pool, and we look forward to rolling this out to others. In addition to this training and more of these opportunities that we are offering to our team members, we're also in the process of scheduling our quarterly transit operator meetings. If you were here a year ago, you know there was a lot of talk about drivers and staff saying they need more in-person meetings. And so we've been very focused and intentional on ensuring we provide those quarterly opportunities. And we've already started looking at our semi-annual refresher training to start in January of 2025. Next slide. We have introduced a new recognition program. These coins that we purchased, we're calling them leadership coins, are a way of recognizing staff who will go above and beyond. So we realize that providing public transit service comes with a lot of rules, regulations, and expectations. It does not matter what job is being performed or what title someone wears. We all have to work together in order to deliver great customer service and take care of the community. These coins are intended to help us all recognize that we need to be leaders. We are implementing these coins organizational-wide as a reward to staff that go above and beyond in the performance of their daily duties. And we just started rolling these out with staff receiving these for accident-free, for being 100% in their behind the wheel evaluations, and or receiving their quarterly bonuses for the quarter ending June 30th. So this idea came to us from our interim operations director, Steve Hamlin, and has been well received by many in our operations team, and we're excited to roll it out. Next slide. I'm going to pause before I talk about the wonderful images on the screen to let you know, we've talked about the back to school events, we've talked about the training for staff, we've talked about the leadership coins. The most exciting thing that I can offer you on the operations front is that we are returning to full service on Monday, August 5th. Routes 2 and 4 will go back to full service with 20-minute frequency on both of these routes. Key to serving FUSD, but key to serving our community. And we're so excited the efforts of operations and our HR team to get the staff in that we needed to go back to full service. The time that they have spent, the dedication there, I'm so grateful. Route 10 will also go back to higher frequency service. Right now, we are intending to go back to 4 buses, 10-minute frequency. Full service is actually 5 buses during a peak window at 8-minute frequency. And we're striving for that. We just need to make sure we can get a few more staff trained. So we did bring in 5 contracted employees. Most interesting solution that Steve has offered from his experience of operations director is that there are contracted employees with CDLs. I did not know such a thing existed, but they do. And we have 5 people that joined us a couple weeks ago, and they're already out operating our vehicles, and we're very grateful that they're here. They will stay with us through the end of October, but are available to stay longer if needed. And just a quick glimpse of where we're at with staffing. We're at 37 of our 48 full-time and 5 of our 10 part-time staff that we really need to be fully functional under our full-time service. But the caveat is we have 8 people starting in our training next week. So that should tie nicely to when our contractors are leaving in early October. We should be really close to that 48 number, and we continue to recruit. And briefly, I'll just mention we were not successful in hiring an operations director out of our first effort, and we have opened the position again. We're doing a lot of local advertising and pushing. If you know someone interested, please send them our way. We're happy to answer any questions. Greg, I'll try really hard not to take any of your team members. I'll try hard not to take any of Kim's team members. But this is a key position in our organization. And so if you do know somebody that's on the lookout, if you have a trailing spouse that you're bringing a family into the community, please let them know this position is available. So I'm going to switch back to what's on the screen. I have a couple just exciting updates. This white thing that you see going up here on our main campus in the photos is our high power charging station, our pantograph charger. So in both of these photos, it is still folded in half. When it is fully implemented, it will actually, the one arm will go above the vehicle. The vehicle will charge under it to make contact and charge. This will be our first charger that we're going to be kind of piloting, if you will, to learn better how it works, how quickly it can top off and get that bus back in service. Because long-term, the plan is to put these at the downtown connection center to increase our range of our vehicles. So excited to see that going up at Digital Up last week. And we'll be doing commissioning in the next couple of days and start piloting the charging test around the middle of August. Next slide, please. And just because I still am just in awe of our downtown connection center, here's some latest photos. The top photo on the left there, he is staining the areas of the wood beams that will continue to be seen after it's fully constructed. Some of the offices, you will not see the beams because we're doing drop ceiling to cover all the cords and pipes, etc. But there are many, many areas where those beams will be visible, and we're very excited to see it come together like this. And then the other 2 photos on the right-hand side is some of the weather stripping and weather protection that they're putting in. It is really starting to look like a building, and it's very exciting. And I will take this opportunity to encourage all of you to consider joining us at the Downtown Connection Center for our September joint meeting, which is really a tour of the building where we'll be talking about some of the sustainability measures, the footprint of the building, and the next steps for phase 2. So Rhonda has, I believe, sent that out to everyone, and we'll get you more details in the future. Next slide. And just a quick look at a few more anniversaries. So in August, we did not have July meetings, so I wanted to share both our July and August anniversaries. These 6 had July anniversaries. I'll start on the top left. Mark Attenberger serves as our fleet supervisor. He coordinates all of our maintenance work on our vehicles and ensures our record keeping is up to date. He's celebrating 16 years with Mountain Line. Top middle is Andy Brown, serving 12 years as one of our transit operators, and he was actually in the photo of that training that staff participated in, and he is a mentor for our newer staff. Jerry Holsworth on the right-hand side has been with us for 6 years. You can regularly count on Jerry to give you honest and candid feedback on anything you ask him about. John Mathis on the bottom left is our IT manager. John was actually part of the agency when we first became NATA in 2006. So he is celebrating 18 years with us. And I think he's actually in the room. John, you're there, right? Congratulations, John. And in the middle, Maria Cardenas is right now she's performing as a paratransit operator while she works on getting her CDL. And she applies the greatest amount of care to those people who need it the most. On the bottom right is Jose Peralta. Jose also participated in that training that was photoed earlier and acts as a mentor for our staff. Next slide. A few more for August. So we have 7 people celebrating August anniversaries. Again, going across the top and then the bottom, Russell is an operations supervisor. He's been with us 7 years. Marco Garcia, 2 years, and Marco did promote to operations supervisor sometime in the last 6 months. And we're excited to have both of them in those roles, really helping make sure transit's delivered every day and customer service is the highest level possible. Greg Lyons is one of our mechanics. He's been with us for 13 years now. Jeremiah McVicker, I don't see him in the room, but he is our maintenance manager. He oversees our fleet and facilities departments. We're very grateful to have him here. He's been leading a lot of the electrification conversations, ensuring both our facilities team members and our fleet team members know all the demands that come with electrification. On the bottom, Andrea Petrucci celebrating 2 years. And I think she has what I would consider one of the worst jobs that we have at Mountain Line. She gets to decide when all of our documents get to be destroyed. And so she's always reminding us about due dates and timelines and document destruction and key ingredient to our compliance efforts. In the middle on the bottom is Wallace Stain. Wallace has been with us 3 years now, and I think everybody would agree Wallace is a cornerstone of reliability here at Mountain Line. And Donovan Walker, transit operator, 4 years. Let's share with you, Donovan started out as a bus detailer at the height of COVID. He actually was one of the staff members we brought in to do that extra cleaning effort that we did throughout the day on a reoccurring basis. And he worked really hard to become an operator, and he's now been with us for 4 years. So congratulations to all of our staff on their anniversaries. We'll be celebrating these with staff at upcoming staff meetings. I just have a couple quick announcements before I'll hand it back to you, Chair Clifton. I did not at the beginning of the meeting recognize that Coconino County has had a change in representation on the Transit Advisory Committee. We all know Tiffany moved on to go enjoy adventures in her life. And so we are excited to welcome Kim Musselman, Deputy County Manager, to our Transit Advisory Committee. Kim has been to prior meetings in the past as an alternate for Tiffany, but we're very excited to have you here as Andy's designee, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Excited to be back.
Awesome. And last, a quick reminder, Cody has sent out an email just this morning reminding you all that my performance review is out there waiting for you to jump in and complete it. So if you have any questions, please let me know. The review is important to my conversation with the board about development plans, strengths, and what we need to be focusing on in the next year. So if you wouldn't mind taking just a few minutes to complete that, I would certainly appreciate it. And with that, Chair Clifton, I will turn it back to you.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, I got pinged on that notice from Cody, and thank you for the reminder, and I will do so. Kim, welcome. Always good to be back at the table with you, Kim. Sometime maybe you can let me know how your other half is doing with his retirement. I'm curious. I'm sure he is thriving, but very good to see you, Kim. And on the anniversaries, wow, that's really impressive. Russell, Marco, Greg, Jeremiah, Andrea, Wallace, Donovan, Mark, Andy, Jerry, John, Maria, and Jose. You know, I count a collective 94 years of service with all of those wonderful employees. My math is not always great, but take that for what it is. Happy anniversary to everybody. We are at the end of our meeting unless there's any follow-up from anybody. Looking forward to the tour on September 18th. And anything else on your end, Heather, or are we good?
I think we're good. We'll get you some information about that tour. There are some dress requirements, so we'll get those to you. No open-toed shoes. We'll have hard hats and vests for you. It is a construction zone. We're very grateful for our partners at Levin that are going to help facilitate that tour. And Dano will be a key part of that tour as well. Other than that, sir, I have nothing else. A brief preview of what our joint meeting in October will look like. And again, our focus will be on what is the status of Mountain Lion as an agency. It's meant to be kind of like the State of Union address, but really just a state of how are things at Mountain Lion so that we have a good foundation of information as we look to what's next in our service planning.
Wonderful. Always good to take a peek ahead. Thank you, Heather. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, thank you for a wonderful meeting, everybody. And we are adjourned. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.